Good night. It's a pleasure to be here. It's an honor to be in this wonderful program for the architecture and culture. And, well, we will show you what we are doing in Mexico. And what we are, for us, is very important talk what is the problems and the situation we live in our country and how we can play with that. We are a group, and first of all, I want to show this photograph is for my mother. My mother is a photographer, Graciela Iturbide, and what I like of this photograph is about a house, the vegetation, how you cannot have all the control in the house of all this happening, and how can we just work with that, with the festival concept. The first work I have before I begin to make a big studio or just a studio is working with friends in art. So in this case, for us, it's very important to show this work because it's only changing the house, making a negative space. How can we put out some part of the building from the house, and how you can see the vulnerable about the house, about what is the arc, and how you really will have the columns and the beams. And the beams. And then about that is the day of the exhibition. Some curator from England was really in the place, even having the back in the wall, and say, "Where is your piece?" And when I tell her, "You are in the piece, and you have to see the negative space and what we did." And about after some moments, she say and think about the piece, and she says, "Okay, I like the piece because this." And what we want to tell you in all our work is about what we can do with the work that you don't see in the first moment. I mean, we don't like this impression first moments. It's more like what you see with the experience of the place, of the space, of the architecture.
Well, we want to share with you several themes which are important for our work. So we try to make packages which can speak about this work and these ideas we have of imagining space. And as Mauricio said, we used to work in different scales. We love to do ephemeral work at the same time with the architectural one. So we try to make these packages between ephemeral work and at the same time architecture, and talking about something we care. In this case, we are showing you a piece which Mauricio did several years ago, and the theme is that the intervention here was just this hole which crosses all the different walls along the house, and which was meant to make this connection between these two trees in different sides of the house. And what's interesting of this piece for us is that along this space there was a visual connection between one place and the other. And as he said, for us, architecture has to do with maybe voidness, maybe not doing a lot, but taking away, and having a provocation behind that, which makes, in this case, along the journey when the exhibition was that way, you can see the people in other rooms. Even you can see along these different spaces, and then see the people again in a different situation. And that was really interesting, because even I mean, a bathroom was part of this intention, and you can go to the bathroom and no one can see you. I mean, the situation was that it was a provocation and doing nothing. So I think this is a theme which is very important in our work, and in this way, doing this ephemeral work, then we try to connect it to the architectural theme.
Okay. We make a school of blind people, and it's very good for us because it's the opportunity to make something without view, what we can do with the other sense. And we have to make public school, I mean, with not that much money. So this is a very poor area in Iztapalapa, in Mexico City. We have a land to make the school, and we have a problem. We have like 180 meters high, all this garbage about the construction of the other houses. And we don't have the money to get back all this garbage. So we think, how can we make like land art, just making these walls and like vegetation to make like a new space inside. We make a model, we make like a very with sentido común,
with common sense.
Common sense, the way that the blind people can really walk between many parts. So I want to have some experience with you because when I make this school, when you see the model, you say maybe it's not that nice, the model. But when some blind people from Spain that want to put some products for us for the school came. He begins with the finger, walking to the model with the finger, and begin to talk about the spaces, the volumes between the squares, the patios, and what's nice for us because we say, okay, we are in the right direction. We decide to use materials for the place, volcanic rocks and tepetate. Tepetate is some land that you can use it as a brick, and it's very, I mean, it's not that expensive, and the idea is how you can use it contemporary. And then about that, how in Mexico, because we have a good climate, you can make patios, a big patio in the middle with a line of water and a library. And how finally we have the experience with the touch, with the feeling of the temperature, and that's why when you see all these materials, concrete, tepetate, the volcanic rocks, and how then you begin to play with the height of the roofs and have this experience, because you have to know that all the blind people in Mexico is more or less visual devil, and yeah, and then you know the light, the shadows, everything is important to play with. And then we make this like big square, this patio, with the sound of the water, with the shadows of the magnolias, and that's the thinking about not only the view, and the more important thing is how you will feel in the place. And because that, we begin to think, if we make a structure like these two buildings, you have like a skeleton, 9 columns for each roof. But and sometimes you have like a skin of tepetate who makes all these workshops, because you don't need a window, so you only have this window in the top, and in the other side you have a big window because it's like a mixed place where it's like the store of the place, the gallery, etc. Well, that's the kind of, and then because they don't make decisions how we can make an escalate, and then all the furniture we make it in the process, in the moment we are making the school. And well, as I say before, when you have tepetate is like a material that you only can do a house of two different levels, and then we begin to understand that we can make like a concrete skeleton inside, but then we can have this skin of tepetate, and that's the way we want to work, and you will see in all the work how very traditional materials we can give it to other place. In other way, we can make, like in the library, we can make bins, steel bins, because we need the tents, because we don't need columns, and then in the top you have like a sound place for hear books. You will see in other projects what we do after. So all this decision of construction has to be with the program. What happens with the program, and then what we can do with all the structure and the materials. As like this, we use some lines in the hand, in the line of the hand, to see with different positions some proximity for the building.
Yeah, I mean, different drawings along all the buildings, so they can be a signal, and that's the way we think you can see at the end. Instead of seeing through the eyes, you can see touching all these different buildings.
And finally, in all around, when we make these walls and gardens, we use like 5 or 6 different plants with smell. And even thinking more in Barragán, in the gardens of Barragán, how can we make some gardens without control? I mean, that you don't need control, you don't need water, and how all this vegetation is more like very living. I mean, you don't need some gardener to help them. So it's the way we think we can make, and it's nice when we make this, how you can, with 5 or 6 different colors, you can make like a composition, very nice composition for these people.
Well, last year they invited us because of this experience of working with a school for blind people to work in this library. It was a big complex, and this big complex used to be one of the biggest libraries in Mexico. And they gave us those yellow squares to work in. The building was an old building. In Mexico City, we used to work a lot with these very old buildings, which are protected by this big institution called INA, and you can't touch those buildings. So you need to develop a strategy so you can work without touching the original structures. But in this case, what was interesting was that the invitation was because we already had the experience of working with this theme of the blind people. And when we found out how was the library, or how the library used to work, it was like a common space, the same space maybe as a common library. And in this case, what they asked us was a typical program of having some shelves and maybe some tables and some small cabins for all these sounds which are produced in a library for blind people. So what was really interesting was in our concept that keeping up with this idea of the voidness and working with all the senses, we work with the sound, and in this case the sound was like the theme which we wanted to work with. So we created this big box, acoustic box, we developed very clear circulations, and we achieved to have these boxes so we can leave a very clear area in the first floor, and then keep the biggest sounds or the noisiest ones in small boxes floating in this, taking advantage advantage of the big height of this old building. So we again took advantage of a nice portico we have in the building and tried to work again with the smell of the plants, and then to create some part of the program which was not originally part of the scope, which was to have all this big site and this big brain to have all the files safe. In Mexico, the jobs are very bad paid, so they have a lot of guys reading a lot of times the same book, instead of having this big site where they can save it and keep it to use it till the end. So we have these three different spaces. We work first of all with the smells. So in this case we have this nice garden. Nowadays it's nicely used in different forms. They have lunch there, they make tai chi, they play chess, and we design it so you can be near again the smells, being the first point of being and feeling part of this new experience of the senses. And then you get inside of this library, and there's all this kids area, which was not in the beginning. And here you can see the boxes floating over this area. Then we also decided to create these different textures with colors in different woods. So each color can show you, and also the drawing in the floors can show you where to walk, where to work. And again, one of the colors which is best seen by the blinds is the yellow one. So we use yellow everywhere. Also, we put different signals in Braille language, texts from books talking about senses. And well, here is one of these rugs, which was also yellow. We designed all the furniture with industrial designer, and everything was conceived for being especially designed for this experience of hearing. As you can see, in this case, this place was all open, it has no walls, and we designed a very sophisticated sound system, so you can hear not longer than a meter, and then in different places, and as you keep on walking you can be discovering about the sounds, and the architecture was part of that. So we designed these different levels in the ceiling so they can also be a reference for the blind people. And well, here you can see the interior of these cabins with very sophisticated equipment. And this is a drawing we did because we invited some artists to work with sound, and they created pieces especially for this space. So what's most interesting of this space is that it's a common place for people who can see and who cannot.
Well, this is another intervention that is in a historical place too. They invite me as an artist just to make something. Because they want to put out the floor, because this church is like going from one side, because or you know, in Mexico in the center you have all this problem with the lagoon, and then because that we count all these materials to know what we have, just to know. I mean, we don't have money, we have the workers of the place, and then with that, in 2 weeks, what we can do. So I see before in that place many pieces of art with problems with the scale of the church. So what we did is just make some like a place, a space into the space, and how we can do it. With with a structural engineer and everything, but only with 6 columns working a place that 70 people can be inside, just having a new experience, and even some artists can make something inside of our piece.
And as Mauricio said, we are very interested very interested in working with the skull and at the same time with the skin, and that's why this is like the reference of how we first work in an ephemeral work as the one we've shown, and in this case with a public warehouse we need to do in Milpalta, which is very near the heart of Mexico City. And the way we found the place was all of this. I mean, all these constructions which they keep on creating, and we have also these nice tones, and we plan to work with that material. And our site was very special because it was like a kind of river around our site. So we designed this building thinking all the time in showing, in using very cheap material, which will be this very thin skull of steel with very light ceilings, and at the same time these stones, which will be the scheme of our project. And we love this kind of pictures because our user, I mean the one who used this space, is all these materials which they put all over around. And this building was like intelligent design because all the windows are open to the north, which is very good orientation in our city, so you won't have a hot climate. And as our views were kind of need to be controlled, we opened these little lines. And then we like to show this because it's the way the buildings, the public buildings work. And at the end, the light is very good. The natural ventilation functions pretty well. And I think this is one of the most important images of what we think of architecture. And I mean, this theme of the skull, and at the same time the very light material, but at the same time the skin, which seems to be very, very strong. But again, the light and the different heights and that game with the space is what we want to achieve in every of our projects.
Yeah, it's very important to understand, depends of the money, depends of the workers. If we decide some skin, maybe the skin is could be perfect, but in other ways, if it's not perfect, we only have to understand what kind of skin we have, like in the other project. No, maybe it's not that perfect, but it's skin, like a snake skin. And then how can we work with that? In this case, other intervention is in the sculptures we make in the Olympic Games in '68. They invite some sculptors from many other countries. This was Fonseca from Uruguay. And what I like of the other photography is how he made his sculpture with all these woods. So we say, well, we can use some all this material to make some. You said to make the sculpture, but at the same time you can make like a big stair that the people just can walk inside the place. So finally, the nice thing about this piece is about make a concept, make a strategic, because in this case we have the model, we have two workers and say we need to make this thing inside. But we cannot cut the pieces because some constructional company gave it to us for two months. So we say, okay, don't cut the pieces, but we have to make this. So in 2 weeks, one more time, we make all these stairs, and the final decision was for the workers. And what is nice is that was very strong, the lines on what is happening there, to understand that we don't have, the details are more about how you use the material, the time, the money, and the circumstances.
And again, with this connection of the ephemeral with the architecture, we designed a market, which is also in this land near Mexico City. And it was again a tragedy. And it was very easy to see how the markets work, and with, again, this common sense, how they function with light and with wind, and they're very clean all the time because they feel good. And it's using that common sense that we decided to create this grid and to work again with this randomness and to play again with a strategy and create these different these ceilings at different levels. And every time we put a piece, we were imagining to, depending the orientation, to use louvers or use crystals, so we can achieve the best light and at the same time natural ventilation. So it was meant to be very monochromatic, very clean, and take advantage of the natural life of a market, and let the users make it their own and take advantage of the color of the tomatoes and the piñatas, and as you can see, what persists in all these images is the light, and at the same time the dialogue with the city, with the volcanoes, with what happens in our country a lot, which is this growing of cities without any order, and we wanted to have this dialogue with the city at the same time.
Yeah. The idea is, if you have it in a marginal zone, and we love these informal houses and cities that everybody's changing the houses every time. They move and change and make other floor, and everything is changed. So if we make contemporary piece there, we try to make something that is in the same rhythm, that maybe the five facade is working with what is happening in all the town, and with that we want to work outside and inside the same way. All the products, all the people is changing every time, and so that's why we think it's like we try to make like a tianguis, these markets of the streets we see in all the countries, and what we can do now just to have the wind cross and have the light only in the north and in the east. The School of Arts in Oaxaca is Francisco Toledo is an artist that works a lot like a civil society in Oaxaca, and they invite us to make this school. And we are working in other projects with Ram Earth, even working with the people from Arizona just to understand the Ram Earth. And we think the Ram Earth was nice for this project because we have all these textures, we have a wonderful earth and colors that we can put between the artists making things in Oaxaca. So finally, we are in a campus, in a not good campus, but in a campus of Oaxaca, and we have to make a school. So we found a place, in the top you see the place we found, because one more time we found they are making something with earth, for water there, and then they say you can have this earth, so we make like one more time like a land art piece.
Yes, I mean our site was flat, and as the campus was such a disaster, I mean you could find every type of architecture there, like since the Parthenon and a snail. It was really a mess. So what we wanted to achieve was to create a garden instead of a building, and we take advantage of this kind of reservorio, which was being created at the time we started to work in the site. And we asked them to, as they need to pay to take away all this earth, we asked them to take it to our site, which was here. And in that way, we can create this idea of building not being building, but instead being like a big garden. And then once you're inside, you can discover this. The idea, of course, was to not, again, fighting as another building, and at the same time to protect the artists to have more silence. But this idea of making this like volcano-style form was that everyone could enter at the same time the school and can walk through all this slanted soil, and to make it as public as it could be at the same time.
Yeah, there is a place, it was a soccer field, and then that's like the garden we want to make, no? And this all in the program we found if we have like a chest, you know, like a table chest, the blacks are the studios, the whites are the patios, and then how can you make a double space? How can you, because you know in Mexico we have very good climate, what can we have in the same space, something that all the sculptures, drawings, whatever you have in the program, can have their own spaces inside, outside?
And what, well, we think it's very important for us in architecture is that we want that the spaces we create should be discovered at the same time. The timeline you walk through the space and you discover every space should be very important. And in this case, the chess plan help us to discover every courtyard we created, and as Mauricio said, to get a bigger studio, but with less money because half of it will not have a ceiling. And I think what this is in this project, it's the chess plan help us to move through the place in different ways. Also, the program is very flexible, so you can walk through the studios without being them a closed classroom, and that helped. And also we wanted to work with this curve form so you can start to discover these different heights of the buildings, and every studio has its own different height between one and the other.
Depends of the program, no? So here is, we can go image by image, how we can came with the earth, how can we make some stones to make with the earth, with the humidity, and then in the middle, these earth walls that we make in all these buildings. Even because we don't have all the money, so it's a way that if we have different places to work at the same time, first of all, because we have to make this school in 1 year, and in the other hand, because they need to go up for the money. So they begin with 3 buildings, and then the people say, okay, good, then you can have all the money. So how can, with architecture, we can help the client to get what they want?
And again, it wasn't a strategy to achieve all this site and to make it part of our project, and without, as Mauricio said, without having all the money, which we achieve at the end, but not all. We have 2 different stages instead of 3 that we designed, and well, here is part of the progress of building one of these.
Yeah, what I like of this building, to talk about this building, is we make walls of ram earth getting to other side. I mean, talking about gravity and how can we do one more time things with the same materials, that is heavy, but at the same time we make like a deconstruction to make it in other way. You can see boxes, but finally we are not working with boxes. We are making with planes, vertical and horizontal planes. And then without columns of concrete, we almost do everything in Rema Earth, even it's a very earthquake zone. And then finally, the more important, the experience. How can we be in the place, how the shadow is important, how the relation with the light and the material is important, the tectonic thing in the place. No, even we love the idea for all the people is walking in all these gardens and how you have different views of the place. Everything is going to the north. I mean, all the buildings are doing the north, south, and north, but almost everything is in north. And as I say, in Oaxaca you have these beautiful blue skies. You have a very strong and dramatic light, shadow, and then it's just like that. You are going patio by patio, workshop by workshop, and then find all these different relation with the volumes. And the places. Yes, and something which is very important, again, is talking about this idea of discovering. As you can see, some pictures are taken from the gardens. So the way you see the buildings are very different in different circumstances. And I think that that's the theme of this building, and what we want to achieve in most of our work,
again exploring the texture, again exploring the light, the shadows, of course the relationship between the landscape and not knowing with a very clear idea what's a landscape, what's landscape or what's architecture.
This image for us is very important too, because here you can see how you have like this vertical and horizontal planes, and how only with these themes you have this structural thing that helps you, but finally how you can make something that the gravity, the open space is getting better, and about that is like a open book, because we think we can even go with this material to more things, no? With other levels.
And this material has a great virtue, which is it creates a perfect climate inside the studios. And as it is a public building, the idea of not having air conditioning was very good for the maintenance of the building.
What is important about the decision of these materials is because really in Mexico we don't want something that you have to put a painter later, or you need to change. I mean, something that is getting all good with this same material. No, as happened in Ciudad Universitaria in Mexico City. These strong structures that can be 50 years with no problems. Well, this is one of the last projects we have in our studio, and a very important work, because we found a convent of 17th century, 2 blocks from the center of the historical Oaxaca. No, there our client find that they have a convento, but that was with all this construction nobody see it. So finally, with an interdisciplinary group, we found that this was a hotel. Even this is not the real thing about the convent. And then we found that there was an old convent, and then we begin to put out many constructions. And what is nice or difficult about this project is the client begin to get many properties, but not at the first moment. They say, we get this one, that one. So it was like a just, because we begin to work doing our plan, master plan, even in the time we are making the building. So finally, we work with this idea of have one more time the facade and the convent.
Here we can see how the block was, and where was this old temple, and the convent, and how then, in a period of the history of Mexico, all the churches and all the convents were broken apart. And in this case, it happened the same. So when we found this site, it was a parking lot. And here you can see, in the middle of nowhere, part of the church. And all these, as Mauricio said, our clients started to buy the different areas which were already broken apart, and where the owners were all different. And during this process, it was a very important, a very long working process. Through 5 years, we keep on working with an interdisciplinary team, and we could achieve with that several things, which was, first of all, to recover the street in the middle, in the heart of this block, and with that open, even though our client, it's not the government, it's a private client, and still we can recover this street, which nowadays is a public space open to all the people, and with a lot of cultural and very nice activities for children and for also old people. And here we can see the plan and the drawings. And what's important again, I think, in this project is this tragedy because we didn't know what our client was going to buy. So he started with the convent and with the front of the old church, because this principal area of the church now is a house, and it is still a house. And then as he could buy these different areas, we could achieve this street and start to create a program with restaurants, some galleries, the offices of our clients.
What is nice in this is, in different cases, we have houses for 18th century, we have other house for 20th century, and we have the convent for 17th century. So we decide that the contemporary intervention is like acupuncture with steel and wood that make all these pavilions that make the program, and to change all this program, recognize the different ages. I mean, not only the important is the 17th century, it's about making a complex thing in the history of Oaxaca. So that's what this is. Before we make some trees, but it's now the place of the public space. Now it's wonderful using for all the people in Oaxaca, and then we begin to make all these patios. And then this is the process of how we put out all the hotel and construction that doesn't alone. And then the client say, okay, I put away everything here, but now tell me how I can have the same square meters. So that's why we decide to make like this very invisible and not invisible pavilion to understand we are part of the play, but at the same time we want to see all the building. It's like a complicity. No? So here, and I love this photographies about we are in one side and the other side, all like this intersection of the new contemporary and the old building. Or in this case, that we have 3 levels with the hotel, and they say we need the 3rd level, and so we decide to not put columns, to use the technology and to make these light roofs to make like a porticos in the top of the building. And here, because they broke the part of the convent, we need to use the place to make the library, and then that's why this new element helps to make this transition to this place to make the program. We use one more time is a nice one time of the year is a lot of raining, so we can use 3 parts that they can move with electricity, and then you can make for one side not make the rain inside, but in the other side, how can you make that the sun don't get to this pavilion?
Yeah, we wanted to give this importance of the old building and to keep on seeing it and never put these shades in front of it. So we put it in an horizontal way and also help to have different activities in this patio. And in this case, we can see in the plan, we can see how the old building was broken with the street. And one of the biggest themes in working in this project was to create this new facade. So fortunately, again, we found this kind of ruins. They were repairing the street while we were designing, and we could make the reconstruction of the old convent, and we make the model of it, as you can see here. And so we built it as it used to be. And this was kind of a tragedy to work with Elena, which is this institution, and to show them that the original facade of the building was not the one which was built, and to start cutting the building as the street cut it, and finally finish with the original facade of the old convent.
Well, more than the original, it's like a cut of the building. So if we don't have any more this hotel, we don't need the 19th century facade of the hotel. We need a cut the memory of the coat of the convent. And our clients say, come on, why you will put out this 19th century facade with beautiful whatever? And we say, no, you really have to have the memory of the building. And if we decide to make the facade inside, we need to be not that schizophrenico, no? Psycho, because I mean, you need to understand. And then we work one more time with the idea of the middle of between the portico and the rooms, and making it very abstract, because it's talking with all these abstract convents of the 17th century of Mexico. And then, on the other hand, we have to change all these facades more simple, more, I mean, not protagonic. And then this is 20th century, and we found a beautiful structure, and we put it away everything, and then find this a nice place for a gallery, and then open the space for the new patios inside, and then make a pavilion that is in the north, but then make like this connection between the 20th century and the new program of the patios. And then there you can see the different things you can do inside. And in the other side, we have a house. We cannot put other level, so we decide to make a roof, but one more time, a contemporary roof that you can see, really, you can see, but we say you didn't see outside. And then you have the construction of the 18th century house to make in a restaurant, and to make the shadow to be with porticos with the patios. And in the intersection between the convent and other buildings of the 19th century, we put away some part of the house to make the back of the convent, and then one more time to make this acupuncture with the contemporary architecture. So finally, I love this photography because we make a very important restoration of the building, but at the same time we recognize the intervention. This is important in Mexico because in this kind of historical center, nobody let you do that, and we work hard to do it.
We were more like lawyers than architects.
Yeah. No, we have to work with that. I mean, it's a lot working with and then how the people.
This is the way it functions.
Function
nowadays,
every time
with
there.
Different programs and different activities. It's really nice.
And the sound pavilion that is like an artist architecture that they invite us to do, because they invite some artists to make something in some museum that make Legorreta, and then they ask me and my brother, that is a sound artist, to make something, and they invite to other place to make like a pavilion. And we decide that's not good, and we decide this place that is a tree, a pre-existing wall, and two stones. So finally, one more time, because when they say a pavilion, you are thinking something because it's a place of art, and then we are thinking something like more arty. But finally, we say no. We have to make some walls, just to make like a horizontal top, a vertical wall, just to make a space. Even if the people don't see and don't recognize as a new place, or more like a strong pre-existing garden. So finally, with all these details of the concrete, these stones that we make it good, like recognizing all this where the farmers make these walls without cement. And finally you go inside, you have these roofs, this shadow, a place to be, a think tank, just for look the tree, for look the stones, and with this very clear relation between the new and the old walls. And finally, because this was a short place for the militaries, we decided to leave these halls to remind the las balas, no?
Firing range.
But now, just to look outside, to look the landscape outside for the children or for the adults.
And we wanted to finish with this type of project because it has a very non-program. The program was just to go around and to hear. and his brother developed a very nice piece with different birds of the area, and I mean, two elements, and just trying to achieve and to get in a different scale the shadows of this tree, and again the stones which we found, and the earth how it was, and the old wall as we found it. And I think that what we think about architecture is to work just like that, with few elements, with the voidness, with the silence, and with the topography. In this case, the topography and the preexistence was this wall. Well, we had, as a part of this complementary of these blocks we were talking about, our last project, which is being done right now, and it has this same theme of doing almost nothing, but trying to get a lot of taking advantage of the site itself, and working with these beautiful landscapes. We are working in also a very long process project, which we've been working through 6 years, but we will keep on working for 20 years if our client keep us. And we designed a winery here.
It's a little winery. They say we need only a room because we will make a big winery, but let us make some room. And we say, no, it's opportunity, let's make something there. And with the temperature, because there is something that we put in the place. And it's the beginning of what we are thinking finally in the new constructions.
But at the end, what we wanted to show you is this relationship again with the landscape in different type of projects we've been doing there, and how we want to have this dialogue with the topography, with the light, with the shadow, with the mountain, with the vegetation, in very different programs. And well, as an example, the last one we did was these bathrooms, which was that simple program, some bathrooms, and working with the pre-existing walls, with the pre-existing buildings, with the trees that were in this area. We designed this type of sand garden with this waiting area for this bathroom zone, and create again a landscape. And that's what we think it's very important for us, to create space with all these elements that just that are unique in this site. And we created all this program like fountains and water just for going to the bathroom.
No, well, finally, what we want to say is, with the different materials, depends the zone, depends the money, depends the scale. We don't care if it's a little thing or it's a big thing. It's about ethics, it's about politics, it's about how can you work. Here we are very close to the United States, we can use wood because it's good products of wood in California. But at the same time, we came with workers of Toluca from the center of Mexico to begin to make stones, because we know the stone, these walls of the stones is very expensive in this zone of in America, but in Mexico it's easy to do it. So take the opportunities, take understand the climate, the place, and then make something for the spaces for the people. Everywhere, every part, the people will live there. That is the important thing. Thank you much. Thank you very much.